Okay, wow, we're gonna start with TBW tonight,
Oh, you want to start?
right?
Or do you want to
Do
do
you wanna
it?
start?
It's up to you, Mayor.
Okay.
Well,
We'll kick it off from last.
I'll just make a couple quick comments, just general stuff, okay? Everybody has their spreadsheets. These spreadsheets are good until Monday. And then Monday, the spreadsheets will be populated with the debt. They'll be populated with police department. They'll be populated with anything we talked about today that's not on there now. And we should be much closer to a reasonable picture as to what our baseline is. Okay? So, the main thing I just want to say is on Monday, just pitch this, shred it, whatever. If you have notes and you want to pass it along to me, then that's fine. But we're going to have a whole new set. I've already populated the debt into the spreadsheet, but because it's really not going to matter today, I just left it alone. So that's that. If we have time after the DPW, now the DPW is going to take some work because there's a couple line items that Kevin didn't really have some information on, so he's kind of going to rely on the board to give guidance as to what you want to do with a couple of the line items. And then we did discuss the supervisory part of DPW. I've parked it right now into a line item for DPW that right now is not populated for salary, just because I'd like to distinguish the salary for the department head outside of the general, if there's any employees in that area, because it gets lost. I just need your guys' okay that that's where you want to have it. I also recommend that if the board is comfortable with that number, that before Monday, Mayor, yourself, speak with Kevin and introduce him to the idea, so that there is, you get closure on that. That you guys work it out. The board's happy, everybody's happy. So on Monday, I can publicly release what that is.
There you go.
Okay. We also are going to have the planning board. Planning board's pretty simple. The fire department, I think I have a fire department next week. Okay, not fire, and the village administration. Gina did give me the village's information, asked me if I could cover it, which I will. And we'll get to as much of that as we can. Whatever we don't finish, we'll pick up on the front end on Monday. I'd like to ask also, just because I think there's a wear out factor, that we try to maybe run till 9, and then at 9 o'clock we cut. We go to a quick executive session, which I know, Charlie, it might not be quick, but we'll try to make it quick. And then we pick it right back up on Monday. I think we're on track right now. There's nothing that's been that difficult. So I think we do have 2 days built in into the second week of March if we need extra days to talk about things. And worst case scenario, if we have to throw a Saturday in there, we will, but my goal is to avoid a Saturday. Okay? Mayor, that's all I got.
Okay, actually, we'll start with planning board, Jim.
Evening, board.
You're good.
Evening. I sent in my proposed budget. I'm sure you guys got it.
Speak up. Okay. You sent in your proposed budget?
Correct.
Yes.
You guys got the numbers there?
The numbers are on your sheets. Yep.
Yes.
Numbers are plugged in.
I try to cut my budget every year.
It's a beautiful thing.
Thank you. And I did it again this year, just so you all know. Not by much, but $100 here and there always makes sense.
Exactly.
We can go down if you want it. Or does anybody have any questions on any of them?
Yeah, I don't see it.
Hey.
No, that's DPW.
No,
This is on the main
It's
sheet.
on your
you got.
sheet. It's listed on your
Okay.
sheet, and then, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and then, any details or anything, Jimmy, we'll bring up. The only question I have, Jimmy, when's the last time planning board salaries have been changed?
Not since I've been on the board.
Okay, my only recommendation is that, just like anything else, if the planning board doesn't want to do anything with salaries, but it goes back to the incentive piece, okay? If the planning board members are okay, I think it's $400 a year Is that right? If they're all, if you guys are all okay with that, and you think that that's reasonable compensation for what time you have to put in, then that's fine. If you don't, again, what happens is years and years and years and years go by, and these things don't get adjusted to what is, let's say, out there in the industry. And then what ends up happening is that somebody then tries to get it to where it should be, and all hell breaks loose because nobody understands, the adult salary stuff. So, what I'm just saying is I recommend that we at least adjust those salaries to inflation, unless you have unanimity on the board and nobody really cares, they volunteer to do it, and then that's fine. So, I'm just throwing it out there because, again, it just goes back to incentives, and I would just throw that out.
I'll poll the board, next meeting, we have one tomorrow night. See what they have to say, more or less. I mean, I do it because I care about the village personally.
Yeah.
And I think most of the guys on the board do, but I don't want to speak for them.
Okay.
So let's go from there with that.
Okay, all right, good, so we'll leave it as is, I'm just throwing it out there just because,
And if I recall, I think the last time it changed was, we weren't getting any taxes taken out, so it was like $365 or something, and then it went up to $400.
so it's just basically
So-
almost like
It
a,
went up, and it went right back down to the same amount that you seen
Covered
in
the
your,
taxes.
in your net
cover the
pay.
taxes,
That was the last time that I can recall doing
okay.
And please, on behalf of the village, thank everyone on
Yeah.
that board for their service, because, there's no way that you're compensated for it. It really is an honorarium.
It's essentially a volunteer,
Yeah.
you're volunteering,
Yeah.
and, that's great, I'm just throwing out there just for consideration, that's all. I'm not trying to increase the village's budget, believe me, I'm trying to decrease it, but there's a lot of equity things that I just want to just throw out there.
that. Okay, great. So, right now, the board members, we got 5 and 1 alternate. That stayed the same as far as, because it's a salary issue.
Right.
I believe the secretary, I left the same. I don't believe she uses it all, but I'd like to make sure we have enough in there based on the presumed hours that she may have to work throughout the full year.
Exactly.
So that covers us on that. The next line item is contractual. We got our legal and engineering advice. And this is outside escrow, because generally we like to, everything should come out of an escrow account
I was just gonna
that they do. But this covers us on other questions beyond that.
For your guys, and not pertaining to the specific job that you have money in escrow for.
Well, we like to make sure if we're doing the right thing.
Okay.
So somebody doesn't come back and sue the board. So we, if we have some questions, and generally, most of it's for legal counsel. The engineering's not too bad, because the guys on the board, a lot of them have worked in construction and they know the ins and outs of it. But if we have a couple of questions, we'll ask the engineer. We'd like to be covered, especially with the big project that we got going on now.
Wasn't it, couldn't that really be billed to the client? I mean, if it's in relation to the specific job, even though you're checking your work, shouldn't that be billed to that specific job?
I could ask the legal counsel on that. I mean, there's some things like, say when we were doing we were looking at the waterfront district,
Right.
where would that come
I
from?
agree, but
Oh, that would be
Yeah.
different.
So you know what I mean?
That's a different thing, yeah.
So that's having
Yeah.
that money on the side when someone comes up with an
Right.
idea, that, we can, and we had spent a lot of hours on that,
Okay.
and released it also.
Okay.
So, that's where some of that money that we use on that line item.
Right.
And without having that line item, then we would have to come back to the village and say, look, we're gonna need some money, because we're looking at a waterfront district. How can we go about that?
No, I understand.
So, but I will check on what you're saying.
Yeah, regardless
For
of, if you're on the phone talking about, geez, what's our best avenue to pursue this particular project, it's still in relation to that project, and you wouldn't have it on your table if somebody didn't file a set of plans with you
Okay.
on that issue. So I look at that as being billable to that specific project.
Okay,
Because you wouldn't ask that question if you didn't bring a set of blueprints.
good point.
you know, so.
Point well taken.
Okay.
I'll make sure of that. The next one's office supplies, just miscellaneous filing things. Then we have our required classes, 24 sessions, generally covers us for the year. And then we have some continuing education classes. So with that being said, we got a grand total of $12,140. Last year it was $12,400. And another $260 this year.
Thank you. You guys did a good job there. I appreciate it.
Any questions? Good.
Yeah, just the escrow issue, I think, is important, absolutely. Especially now, more and more of the applicants should be, covering the costs of attorneys and engineers. It's very, believe me, I just had a project that I did, and I had to put a $5,000 escrow down, and they ate up a lot of it with the engineers. And the town that I was doing work in, they have a planner. And the planner, for whatever reason, feels that she needs to tell me what color building it is. And I think that at some point, you're just like, I appreciate the aesthetic part of it, but colors of buildings and so on, so it can get a little bit out of control. But certainly, the engineer costs and the lawyer costs are should be recouped. And I think that that's great that you guys are pushing for that and trying to make that solid.
I believe just about everything comes out of there. I don't know how much, we'll have to double check what was spent out of there this year. And then we can go back and take a look at that.
The one thing we,
Okay,
cool, I wanted to ask, but I figured we'll do that then, good call,
okay,
because when you brought it up.
thank you.
One other thing, we had discussed with the main project coming now, the hotel, and possible larger projects coming in the future. We are gonna wanna sit down, I'll be after the budget process with you, and talk about how much, without raking them over the coals, what's the maximum we can get out of these investors that they're going to put into our village as part of the fact that they're gonna be making a killing with a hotel or a conference center or a large restaurant or a housing project. We wanna review and check, with our towns and whatnot, are we maximizing the money for police, fire, parks? Is there something we can get them for education? Is there something and make sure it's all in our code, so that when they come in, glad to see you, drop your check off for 20,000, and then we'll talk to you. That's the one thing I just wanna make sure, because I know that there were, and we had talked about that, and I know there were, years ago, there were more things that were done, and then I know you guys are on top of it hard, but I just wanna make sure the board is up to speed on what the investors are doing for the village.
All right, well, there's park and rec fees.
Right.
We have to look at the code and maybe change the code, because it specifically dictates what the park and rec fees are for.
That's exactly what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we want to help you to maximize what you're trying to do. That's really what I wanted to say.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah, I think it's feasible parklands. I think there was a certain amount of space they had to set aside, or
Or
what,
pay
$1, the dollar figure.
Right.
They
But
didn't have-
what I'd like to do also is look at these other communities and say,
Yeah, that was for
is anyone else getting
residential.
away with something specific with police,
We never
fire,
addressed
this, that?
Anything
Add them to
beyond
our
that.
code.
Correct.
If other communities are getting that from these massive investors,
We need to look.
there's no reason why we should at least,
That's-
if we waive it and we do them a favor, no, what I'm saying is, if it's not on the
Recommendation
code,
to us on what you think is.
we can't waive it. But if it's on the
I'm
code,
sure
it's gonna be like, that's
that
gonna
some
kill
of
me
your
on the
deals,
investment.
your
We can
personalized,
decide that we can waive
on
something.
the projects that you're
But-
working on,
But if it's
There
not
are
there, we can't.
has
There are
guidelines for those
state
things.
laws
It's
that
gone
govern
through this.
this.
Well, that's what
before.
that's why I at least wanna look into it and make sure that
Don't go
we're,
through it much, so we're
we're
new at it.
maximizing
Usually,
that.
by the time we figure it
I
out,
don't see it.
the horse is out of the barn kind of thing. So,
Right.
But if you, in your travels, Jim, if you know what they're doing specifically to commercial space,
And I'll check what places I visit and go to and see what they have on the books for a feasible parkland in relation to commercial development. Maybe we can kind of talk and sort of, you can kind of direct us how these things are in other areas, you know? So-
Sure.
And the other big reason for this is, as I explained to John Jones with what he was doing with the chemicals and whatnot, we may be getting the best right now, but I wanna make sure that the community knows we're constantly going out, looking, and, because I guarantee you again, people in this community don't understand what the planning board is doing. So that's my other thing, I wanna make sure they understand how much work is being put into at the planning board level. Thank you very much. You gonna hang out for that, or I can discuss the,
Or we can do it after one of your other meetings.
that's fine. It's, well, Monday.
That can wait.
Yeah, when you have a voice.
You don't sound good.
Well, Monday we can do it at exec.
As long as we do it, I believe before you adopt the budget.
Yeah, let's do it on Monday then.
When do you have to adopt the budget? By the end of March, right?
Well, no, we do a tentative in March, we adopt it in April, so after the tentative goes to public hearing, it can be changed.
But let's do it on Monday if you're able, because that way it's done. Okay? We don't have to worry about it.
All right, but that's not gonna change this at
Right.
this point in time.
And we don't want to, because then that'll just save you
Because I
extra
still,
money.
well, I still need that.
Right,
But
I
we have to
agree.
discuss presently.
good to go. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks.
Now I'm gonna be over.
Now you can drop.
I don't know.
Talk to you later.
Swing in.
Evening, everybody.
Back
Closing out
again.
planning, opening up DPW. You have the packets that Kev gave out, as well as the numbers that Ed generated on the sheet. Now, what's that?
It's okay.
I spoke to the treasurer, Edmund Rita, on Sunday night. He made some time with me, we went over this. I've been in the position about almost 2 months now with the DPW. And I just went through some items, did an inventory of the status of the garage, our equipment, our needs and everything. And came up with a general budget. Just, there's some things I highlighted. For contractual, that A1640.4. Really the only thing I increased in there was our fuel oil from 10.2 to 10.5. Just as we don't know what it's gonna be the following year, which brings us right in the ballpark.
That 350, that was a number that you bargained, like the.
Yeah. Our last one was like 333 a few weeks ago, so I feel comfortable with the 350. It's been, we haven't went over that yet from previous deliveries and tickets I looked at. Any questions on that first page for anybody?
Well, on the first page, it's essentially within $300 of what it was last year.
Yeah.
When you were reviewing it, did you have any year-to-date indicators of, are we going over budget on any of these items? or-
No, pretty much everything looks pretty good so far on this one,
Good.
so
Okay.
far.
Yeah, it's just that header's wrong.
I just want to,
It's just an
that's what I
old
want to
sheet.
make sure.
It's an old
The
sheet.
headers,
Yeah, this is
just so
last
everyone
year,
understands
yeah.
that.
Again, the main
But
thing
the
is,
handwritten is.
Right.
the main thing is the spreadsheet has got the accurate
Right.
information. What you're looking at on the copies are just the individual inputs. Don't pay attention to the top thing. It's
Okay,
just not
good to go.
I do apologize for the way it's presented to you.
No, it's all good.
For the A5010.4 contractual, that decreased by $300. Really wasn't that much. Just a lot of work I do in between the plant and DPW, I combined into one, so trying to set stuff back on that I can do.
If, what I'd like to see is to get that way with as many that, there's certain stuff you gotta do
Right.
at your building, but I think that we're, this is something that we can save by trying to consolidate more of it and by utilizing technology more
Yep.
rather than printing out books every other day.
Now, Kevin, on this one, I didn't put the number in because I wasn't sure, because you had a question mark next to ceiling cracks and pavement.
Yes.
And, let's see, what else? I'm assuming that large truck repairs and parts is 14,000?
Large truck repair.
That's what I have.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, all right, so the ceiling cracks, we have to come up with a decision on what that's going to be.
Right, I wanted to see if you wanted to get a tentative numbers first to see where your final budget comes in. I increased our asphalt winter, item 4. The roads are taking a beating this year, a lot of frost and heaving and stuff. So that's why I left the, crack ceiling, to let the board discuss how they feel about that. I'll get a better update in the next few weeks. But if they wanna throw a number in there that you feel conservative with, we can work with that. But I just wanted to leave a little room for us in the budget if we have to make any modifications for anything.
Blacktop prices, what do you anticipate?
I have to get a call, I'll call into that tomorrow. I'm working
Are
that.
they still heading up like the,
I really don't know yet,
Yeah,
but I do
There's
have.
gonna be a huge need though, because all the roads.
Well, that's
take
not-
massive
that's
beat.
not-
That's what it is, they're
That's-
gonna supply and demand, they see the need for it, so the price will go
I
up.
think that'll creep up there. Yeah.
But we'll see, I'll get a more positive number. It decreased a little on some and increased and decreased on some of the other things, if you look at it.
So what was the final number that you want to go in with, Kevin?
On that one, Ed, I didn't, get a chance to total that.
Okay, so, all right, so I'll work the total.
Okay.
And I'm not gonna do anything with seal cracks, and I'll leave that alone. Although, I think maybe we should put a note on,
Whatever number you put in there, I can work with.
okay. DPW liaison is the mayor? Okay, Mayor, would you mind in your sheet putting in there seal cracking to discuss so that, on the budget sheet? And,
Kevin, seal cracking is a liquid?
Yeah.
Okay.
Liquid hot tar.
Okay.
okay, and then I'll add that total and I'll put that in the line item for Monday.
Does anybody wanna go over any questions on, increased our fuel and our gasoline and diesel? You know, this winter was bad, and we don't know what the next winter is, so I just increased it 2,000 each on each one, as a little buffer.
Let's say that's a safe bet. You know,
We don't
then
know.
a few good years in a row, then you get a lousy one, so.
Right, I'm just trying to give a conservative budget
Yep,
here where we
absolutely.
could cut, increase in other parts. Our equipment, we do have a good mechanic, we keep up on our equipment. We don't need to replace any equipment this year, but, probably next year, but as long as we keep up with the maintenance, we'll do a lot of in-house what we can. We do take pride in our equipment, and the employees do take pride in it, and maintaining them, keeping them clean and running. And
What we're gonna need though is, as you mentioned, next year, the following year, I know that you're new to the position, but you know the machinery. What we need to know is
What needs to be,
when,
Yes.
if something's got 2 years left,
That
whether
should
we
be-
can stretch it out to 5 or not is irrelevant. We've gotta start budgeting something for it now.
that should be in the capital improvement projects that we did. Former Superintendent, Mr. Patterson, should have that already presented to the board from last year, just like we did the water. And I
But we
can dig
need
that up.
to insert dollars to
Right.
match.
Did you catch this? We're talking about like a front loader or a truck
Set
or
up
whatnot.
a reserve fund.
Right, well,
You
he's
wanna
saying
say-
that Pat did set aside money already?
No, we did have a capital project plan for replacing equipment further down the road. I could
So you have a
find that.
capital project plan in writing,
Just like the water does, sewer, and
Okay.
DPW does, I can dig that out.
yeah, so I recommend you set up a reserve fund and, give to it what we can afford to give to it. And unfortunately, that'd probably be the first place you'll have to make adjustments down if
Yeah.
we're touching the cap.
Right.
But I think,
I feel comfortable we could hold off this year and maybe start one next year.
yeah, but the thing is, Kevin, if you're planning on having a need next year, we need to start now.
Okay.
Okay, because, again, the money's gotta be collectively, put aside and grown. Not that you're not gonna make much interest on that, because these things go into very low interest bearing type, instruments, but I think that a consideration for a, equipment reserve fund would be in order, and I'm pretty darn sure that for highway, DPW type factors, there is a, reserve fund that's, not terribly difficult to work with.
Now, it doesn't matter the piece of equipment, you mentioned the
No.
specifics on the reserve fund are quite specific. So
Depending on what they are, like tax stabilization reserve fund has certain rules.
Right.
How much you can put aside as a percentage of how large your budget is, as to how much debt you have. There's a lot of things that factor into these reserve funds. With the equipment reserve funds, I believe, if I remember right, it just takes a vote of the village board to spend the money, and it's potentially permissive referendum. So if you have some people in the community that don't want you to buy a front-end loader, they could go out and do a petition, and then it could be, essentially have to be voted on, rare.
But in the reserve fund, let's say when your tandems blows up or something like that, you can still use that money, you have a discretion on what.
As long as it's a
heavy
piece of equipment
Okay,
for
right.
that function, yes.
Yeah, that would be
That
important
would
to
be
have that,
important.
because even if you, all of a sudden you had a year that you didn't budget 2 trucks, and you had that type of thing, the reserve fund would be essential for you guys, because I don't know how many times we had, this guy needs a truck, what do you want?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just blew up yesterday.
Exactly.
Yeah, it doesn't shoehorn you into the type of equipment per se.
Right.
It largely has to do with the department. And again, I'll, once we decide which one we'll do, I'll pull out the pub and we'll look at it and take a look at what the rules are. But a lot of times with equipment, as long as they're within the same fund, like if we put aside an A fund, which in this case we wouldn't, well, yes, we would. This would be an A fund item. If the sewer department then has a problem and they need a truck, we can't take the A fund's money to spend on a sewer truck.
You can always buy the truck, in the highway department, and loan the department a truck. I mean,
Yeah,
what's-
ultimately, the ownership of it is the issue. Because again, when you're costing the performance of a department, if that department's being subsidized by another department, then you're not getting the true cost of what's going on.
I just think they're always in search of new equipment at some
Yeah.
point, whatever that cycle be down there, so the reserve fund makes sense for them guys.
Also, it's not gonna affect these numbers, because we're not gonna assume anything. But what's gotta be done relatively soon is understanding our goal for the consolidation and what we can get from the state. We have to research what the state has given in a meeting. They said, the grants that are coming out, now we may not get anything, but at the very least, we need to apply for everything we can.
Okay.
If in the past, and this is something we need to research, they've actually given equipment as part of the incentive to consolidate. I know that land and buildings are a part of the grant because you need a bigger space and a bigger area to accommodate 2 departments into one. But, that's what we need to research now is what else over the last several years was acceptable by the state that they were able to say, yes, we have no problem if the town won't accept the consolidation without a front loader, new front loader deal, then we'll throw in a front loader. So we have to see, again,
Okay.
it's a wish list, but if we don't look into it, then we're doing a disservice. But that's something that you and I will sit down and do quickly. We are gonna schedule another meeting with town, but hopefully within the next 2 weeks, to move forward on the discussions.
Anybody have any more questions, or anything I can help you with on this?
Again, what number are we on, Kevin?
A 5110.4.
Contractual. We're still on the same page with ceiling cracks and everything
Yeah.
else. If there's, we don't want to move on if there's no more questions.
Okay, just, so right now I've got 125.5, that will be adjusted, taking into account the ceiling crack decision, and we'll totalize everything that's on the page.
Thank you, Mr. Weaver.
Sure.
And I do apologize the way it's presented. Thank you. Everybody feel free to move on. What page do you want next?
Page 51, 12.
85112, street
Yep.
maintenance chips. I left that the same because that's new for me, and I wanted to acquire some information about that, how that works and what our limit is on that.
With the chips?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Typically, it's it used to be higher, but it's expected that it's gonna remain the same.
Okay,
We'll get a
that's why I left it.
Yeah, we'll get a verification on
Okay.
that, but we're gonna put in 25,000
Okay.
highway essentially.
Right.
It's based on the miles of roads.
Okay.
I have no problem doubling the roads if you want. I move to double the roads.
That's how the highway departments in the Adirondacks survive.
Oh, yeah?
Highway budgets up there are huge compared to the
Oh, 'cause of all the-
administration, because it's
all
all,
the roads,
it's all
yeah.
road work.
Yeah.
You know, the administration stuff is tiny, you know, most of those people work part-time, you know, like the assessor is 1 day a week, you know, yeah, so
I'm in.
yeah,
Set this snow.
forever all snow removal, yeah.
I have sidewalks, A5410.2. I didn't budget nothing for that, I left that the same still, because I know we didn't have any major projects coming up yet, as I could find.
Well, with sidewalks, is that repair also, or just for new sidewalks?
You got something
New
there for
sidewalks.
repair.
Repair, I have repair. Litter baskets, I've only put in for one, I cut that back. Street signs, poles and hardware, I left that the same, and we've been adding more and more.
Right.
The biggest thing is just the printing of the signs, we have the poles and stuff, but just getting everything, form lumber, I went through assessment of that, I cut that down in half. And sidewalk replacement, I left that the same, we'll know after the winter here,
Right.
but that should get me more than enough. The guys are capable of handling that, it's just what the concrete's gonna cost and stuff, if we need to.
When you say street signs, poles, and hardware, is that you have to make the
That's
signs?
bandings, poles, the signs that get them fabricated, like more stop signs, or we have to replace a damaged sign. That
Okay.
adds up quick.
Don't they have those already?
We do have some, but if we need new street signs,
Got it.
that's where it runs into it.
You have to pay for those handicap signs or different things like that, is that how you, that's how?
We always have like one or two or something, but you'll get something that comes up that's damaged, like an old street sign that has to be replaced,
Right.
then you gotta order it.
Okay.
So I left that the same there.
Now, do you need to put somewhere in your budget for the meters, the double meter things, because we have
That
to
would
order
be,
them?
that would be. police
Under Kenny's?
department, Yes. I'm working on a number of things for those. We did an assessment. It was 39 double heads we would need. I think he has 8 to 12 in stock.
Right.
So I had to give him we made an assessment. We could probably eliminate 30 poles off Main Street, going to the double heads, which will make a nice cleaner appearance on Main Street. Less poles, easier for us to clean and everything. It just really might dress it up really nice, so that doesn't all look congested all over. So that's something we wanna work on. The next one is snow removal. Equipment, we didn't budget for nothing. And
What is equipment under snow removal?
that would be purchasing new snow blower, anything like that to do in the snow. Contractual, I increased our rock salt from 30,000 to 35. So after this winter what we had. I will have a preliminary update of all our tallies for everything, once I get everything logged in for us. Snow plows, blades and edges, I cut that down by 500. Accessories, I cut that down, and hoist repair, I cut that down. We do have some stuff in stock, and we made it through these storms, so I cut that back a little bit for conservative number.
One thing to add on that, the salaries, what I'm going to do is after this last big snow, I'm gonna try to get a total. I don't know, I didn't get a chance to ask Ann as far as invoices from contractors. Gina, do you know if contractors have turned in invoices at all?
They're all supposed to be going through Kevin.
I'm working on that right now. I got 2 of them, still waiting to get everything together, and then we'll have a preliminary,
Okay.
what the contractor cost was, our fuel and everything for that.
Okay.
I'll have that all presented to you.
Okay, so I'm gonna try to come up with an estimate, but it's probably gonna be in the ballpark of where we were last year, okay? And then we'll just cross-check that,
Yeah.
after we get our totals. Because again, we know it's a very tough year, an unusual year, a lot of expenditures. But then on the other hand, I have to say, I haven't heard any complaining about the conditions of the streets or anything. I don't know if anybody else has, it seems like they've done it, everybody's done a really nice job.
Thank you. The guys really put a lot of time and effort in, and support from the board for helping us to go to local contractors, and that made a big difference. It was a big team effort.
I had a couple, because people didn't understand that it takes more than 5 minutes to clear the entire village. So I had a couple of people that actually were leaving messages, scary messages, like, how come you don't care about us, da-da-da. And then the same person, 3 messages down, they just cleared our street, it looks fantastic, thank you so much. Could you please tell the crew that they did a great job? Like this, no, I have 3 of those over like a 2-day period, because it does, for a half block, it took 3 hours, because we had that much,
If I may interject here, the reason for bringing the contractors is, my main goal is public safety, police, fire, and ambulance. Public safety of the village residents, to make sure we can provide the services to them. That's why we had to go to that next extreme. We're a small crew of 6, you add water and sewer in, that's another 5. It's just, we don't have the equipment or the men, so bringing the local contractor to public safety was my biggest concern, and you can't put a price on that. You can't explain to somebody a fire truck stuck on a corner.
Right.
or
Well,
an ambulance
we can
hung up
put a
somewhere.
price on it, when we ran the numbers,
You could,
when you're talking
but
about
you can't replace the
overtime,
light for it.
and what we got, we didn't just get a guy. We got a guy and equipment and 2 pieces of equipment. The rates, some of the rates you got, they were lower than what we're
And they
paying
were all
our
local,
people
too.
for. And it included a truck. So we were in good shape. By bringing them in, it really helped.
It
I,
can-
I had some people ask me, how come they were as long as they were? 3 or 4, I said, well, these guys are working for homeowners and stuff too, so don't mistake
Right.
Yes.
that for, they may not be being paid by the village 6 days after the storm. They're working for private individuals doing the same thing. So, before you
Right.
get mad at me, decide, maybe that's, was the case.
Yep.
And just to let you know, they were working for the village several days after the storm, when I specifically told Kevin, we're done with the contractor, so I see 2 trucks out there, I'm like, what's going on? Kevin starts laughing.
No, I had the
He
same
starts,
thing.
he starts laughing, he's like, yeah, by the way, they're working for free. And Gina actually was assistance on that as well. But so we had a couple of people volunteering afterwards, and we did get a comment from one of the contractors that he was ecstatic, because of his visibility during the storm, he picked up a lot of
Yes.
jobs. Now, again, not only did we serve the safety issue, clear the streets, but now we're also assisting with helping our business people to prosper.
Local jobs.
No, it worked out pretty good.
We did have a 3rd contractor, but his truck broke and he wanted to volunteer.
Yeah.
And I said, I do appreciate the phone call and the effort, but it was all local, and my biggest thing was the public safety. And that's my biggest goal, is for
Yeah,
that.
especially snow like this, if you don't do a good job, you subject yourself to lawsuits, slip and falls, you name it.
Well, it was close to the record for
Yeah.
February
It-
snowfall, and it was in such a compressed period of time. Getting
was.
rid of it was a problem.
Can say we have about 87% of the village completely done, curb to curb. Main Street, the hills are cleared, I have a few side streets we're working on. The Casey, Loxboro's getting cleaned up. Main Street, from one end to the other, is completely gone, piles. So we got some sidewalk issues to work on. But, very good job by all, and the support of the board is, and thank you very much for it.
Okay, so we'll get that snow removal number,
Yes.
and then the board can weigh in as to if they feel it's applicable.
Does anybody want to go over anything on the contractual for the snow removal, on parts or repairs?
What was the treatment for Roe Park, is that what that is?
For the next
Lane
one?
chemical treatment?
Food chemicals?
Yes, that'd be, parts, yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to step on top first.
Playground equipment maintenance, I left that the same, I did find an invoice that was repairing the rubber matting over there, or any of the equipment that might have broke.
That's a key, we had asked that to be done several times,
Yes,
and that, when the spring hits,
yes.
that's a
There are some
priority.
issues over there that need to be addressed.
That's something that we need to, between DPW and the police, they gotta get out of their cars, both, and actually walk the playground. We have to schedule a walk of the playground on a regular basis. I don't want,
Especially in the summer.
yeah,
Yeah,
well, that's what
it's-
spring, summer, and fall. I do not wanna hear about the graffiti that's been up for 3 weeks that nobody knows about, and it's disgusting.
Right.
There were times years ago when me and a couple other people, and I'll admit it, I used a spray can. And that's because I've called 3 times, nothing was done, disgusting stuff was on the slides, my kids were playing on them. I cleaned it up myself, and it sat there for another 2 months, and then they came in and cleaned it up. That we have to stay on top
I'll
of.
make sure, we have somebody over there every day, and I will
Yeah.
make sure to do a
I-
assessment.
I know Bill Strobel was
yes.
supervising the removal of graffiti
Yeah.
with
In the last 2
community
years, he's been
service.
doing, yeah, we've been on point, but that's the other things that we, now, hopefully we'll continue to get, not that you want community service people, but we want community service people. So we're gonna be working with Bill, on
Coordinate that again.
any of that, because that's key.
Yeah.
The other thing, if you could, just work with rec,
Yes.
because I'd rather than just to maintain, or were there any goals out there? Are there goals for improvements?
Yes.
You know, we need to know that because, you know, we should start to look at that. Not that it's gonna be in this budget, but these are, you know, I don't think it's given the attention that it needs.
Okay, we can address that and assess that over there.
The other biggest thing for this, with this whole thing, with Roe Park and all our parks, the geese.
Oh,
Yes.
The geese and the dogs. The geese, we have got to find, this is the year, 2014 is the year of the geese
Okay.
solution.
We'll
We've
work
got
on
to
that.
figure it out, because to have that stuff on the fields and kids,
Yeah, that's just a health hazard and an epidemic with that.
You might wanna look into, a lot of times like facilities like stadiums and like airports and things like that, they use like these sound-making pyrotechnics that scare
Air
them.
cannons,
Yeah, they
yeah.
scare them away, but these actually are like, you know, they shoot them in the air.
That's
and
what
they
the city uses it.
Yeah,
They're-
for
they
pigeons
call-
and stuff too, yeah.
It's basically a shotgun round,
Yeah,
but with nothing in it,
yeah,
and it scares them away, and after a while,
they don't come, and they don't come
Oh, yeah?
back.
and they don't
Yeah.
go
That's what
south
they do
of
in
Raleigh
Is that expensive?
when they stay there all
Not
year.
usually, you
No,
just
I-
need the people that are trained
I
to
think
do
it's
it.
Do me a favor.
under
Yeah.
$1,000.
Look into that.
that's a win. Because I would actually like to work with the school and the town, see what we can do about their O'Neill and Brooks's. More so, Roe Park and O'Neill are the two main, the geese don't really hit Brooks as much, but
They hit
O'Neill's
Little League,
horrible.
Park.
You got Little League.
O'Neill, yeah, well, the whole Roe Park area.
Yeah.
The whole Roe Park area and O'Neill is
Okay.
horrible. So we're meeting with the school on the 4th, so we'll actually talk about that as well. But do me a favor and check into that, because that's something that, if it's only $1,000, then I'd like to try and put that in this, whether, if they're shooting something off, we can put it in Ken's budget maybe.
Can you give some
But,
information on it, Anthony, what they use down there?
Yeah, I will, and they also, I'll have to check that tomorrow. They also hired DEC actually sent a contractor in to actually gas them and pick them up. It depends how
that.
bad.
Harder to sell that.
Well,
Not to me, not to me.
allowed people to
It's
sold.
I don't think that
all-
will go too good.
I
No,
know you have
it's
a
what it
shooting
is,
gallery.
it's all humane, they
Right.
pick them up and they
Yeah.
bring them to the county jail.
Oh, they gassed, they just knocked him out. Oh, no, they killed him.
No, they
Yep.
kill them.
Okay. I'm for that.
They're actually,
I would
The
love to see
state does that, the
They're-
state will do it if the population is ridiculously overpopulated.
Let's contact the state on that also, because even if,
Thank
you will, thank you. Anthony, I
Somehow
really
on a
appreciate that.
playground gassing anything to death.
No, it doesn't look bad. It doesn't
Yeah.
look bad. They corral them into a truck.
Oh.
We have had some people suggest that
Let's
they
just leave
could
it as that.
Yeah.
do, you know, during bow season, open it up.
We don't need to let them do it.
That's a little more, I think.
it's before 8 o'clock, we don't need to be
Yeah.
talking about gassing
Okay.
the kids at home, okay?
Okay, next?
Yeah.
The playground maintenance, that was 1,500. They had a zero turnover in there.
Yeah, that's.
That's never
we've
gonna
got a
happen, don't worry.
contract, Yeah.
Yes, that was contract. Contractual, I left that all the same. The pool chemicals, we left zero because it's a town pool. And we used to supply it to the water plant and everything, but they've been maintaining the chemicals over there. I call them and tell them what we need. and
But
they've
you
been doing
actually do them.
Yes, we maintain it, they'll supply the chemicals and
That's great.
filters and stuff like that, so that's been working out.
This is the biggest step, hopefully, to take care of some of this
Yeah.
budgeting,
Yeah,
is that,
you're involved.
well, they're involved, they need to actually just take, again, it's the mindset. This is a town park. You know, I mean, I don't wanna start checking IDs at the gate and saying, if you're not, you can give us $2 and it was not a town member or a village member. So this has gotta be a big push by this board, and not just myself, we have to go to the town and say, look, we need you to. Now, on the other hand, Memorial Park, which is split in two, a third village, 2/3 town, we have maintained for all these years,
Yes.
and never said boo. And yet, it's town-owned, which boggles my mind why it is, but everything, all this needs to be under town. And that's something that this year, obviously, we're gonna budget for it,
Yes.
but this also needs the year, we're gonna consolidate DPW, but at the same time, all these costs for our parks need to shift to the proper area. Continue, I'm sorry.
Can I,
Not so much.
can I, under that, is it possible to look into the staining of the pavilion, which hasn't been done for years, that it needs to be done?
Yes, we talked about that last year and
Right.
begging for the money.
We talked about doing it in-house? Did we discuss that?
Why can't we get community service, if we buy the supplies, me and Bill could oversee it.
I'm thinking that could be.
That'd be a nice
this is-
weekend project with somebody.
The only thing you gotta be careful of using chemicals, the community service people, you know, if they're not wearing their masks or doing the right
Bill
thing.
makes sure that they're wearing.
I can
the
make sure that
proper
You don't
follow
want, you don't want
protocols
somebody to
and-
have a problem and then, you know, the village gets sued
We could have
because
a
they.
form, made up form, they acknowledge it, received their, and then, preparation on what they're using, the proper procedures for using it, and their proper safety gear, we could do something like
Yeah.
that.
I
Let's
think-
make sure the job is okay to be done by community service people.
Okay.
And that it's not too much for them. I'm a huge proponent of community service, and I'd like to use it
Let me
every
look
single
at the
day.
pavilion and see what it was in detail.
Bottom line, you've got a budget for it.
Right.
We're several years behind.
Okay.
And budget the number that's supposed to be budgeted, and if we can get the community service to do it, then we'll just have a little extra,
Okay.
possibly to use somewhere else in the pavilion or in the park area,
Okay.
if we're allowed.
Yeah, I agree with that, Mayor. I would budget for qualified people to be using that stuff. And then if, you know, maybe the community service people can be helpers or whatever, but I'd be real careful about them touching
Could we
chemicals.
increase that line item of beautification parks to 4,500?
Well, Gina, what was the number on that? I thought it was like 15,000.
I,
15,000.
That was probably contract price.
Yeah.
Right.
It's stain, right?
It's a
stain.
stain. It's a stain.
Yeah.
It's,
But you're not just gonna get Sherwin-Williams at the hardware store and put it on with a brush. I think it's like,
It has to be prepped.
it's commercial
there,
grade.
there should be paperwork, I'm guessing down at the DPW, when
Okay.
they completed that building, that explains the maintenance of the
Right.
We did have a
pavilion.
number.
I'll have a
But
number for
that-
you on Monday.
That's a capital.
Yeah, that's fine. Just what you can do, Kevin, is
Town should
reference the
be
code number
sharing.
Yep.
and just shoot me an
We
email.
had discussed that as well, with the town helping us with the fact that it, you know, again, but this might be something where we may have to go as a group and just show them, just not to bully, but to show that we're the concern, that this needs to be covered in town. You know, we don't have that, just like we're going to school for Bob Meadow, it's not,
It's an A fund issue,
it's an A fund issue.
townwide A fund.
Let me, look at the paperwork, and I'll have a preliminary number for the board on Monday, you can give me till Monday, so I can get some prices from contractors and call around, see what the actual product needs to be applied to that.
Yeah, just
And
email me
if we're
when you got it.
talking staining, it could be phased, we could do half of it now and save half of it for.
We could, but we're already years behind.
Yeah.
And the biggest problem is
It's
the money we
preparation.
spent on the facility itself
Is to
The
maintain
biggest
them.
mistake we can make is not to maintain it 100%. So we're already several years behind on the staining, and that's key to maintain the,
It was like the whole process with the water tanks, the longer you wait, the more you're gonna.
I don't want it.
But if.
But, oh, let's see if we can do getting the town money.
No, but they've already done their budget.
Doesn't matter, they got money.
Give me till
They have-
Monday and I'll
they have
have a
contingency.
preliminary number for everybody, so I can work on that.
What we should do is at very least ask them for one, at least one item, and it should maybe.
There's
communicate.
also, the town also has money in the Parkland Reserve.
That's where we get this money, is
Okay.
Parkland Reserve.
So it's not even the budget, they already have that money aside, that's.
No, they spent a lot of that on the pavilion in Fort Montgomery.
Yeah, but there's still,
There's
money-
gotta be
there's still
money there,
money in there.
Now, the
maybe-
Parkland Reserves, is that what we're getting from the builders,
Yes.
right?
Oh, yeah, the town is,
Right.
for the town projects, yes. Yeah.
Okay, I'll see if I can get a positive number for us or somewhere in the ballpark to get that process done this year for us before, okay? Any other items you guys have questions on, would like to go?
Well, how about the mowing contract?
I think that pretty
I-
much stayed the same, right?
Kevin, I increased it, I
Okay.
increased it to 15,
Okay,
But wasn't it 10 last year?
no, it was 13.
13.
What's
No,
tractor
no,
mower
wait,
repair?
no, it was
and parts?
15. According to my
It's like
records,
for
it was
the weed
15.
whackers and stuff we use when we have to cut brush. We go out, the two guys that work, we have to cut certain areas down the
Right, but do
contractor.
we have a tractor?
We have two Graveleys down there we use. We're cutting the water plant, stuff, places the contractors don't do. That's just minor repair parts, the small equipment, you could list it under.
About the contract for grass cutting, it was about this time that the street superintendent and I would look over the contract if you wanted to make amendments to it, and then the board would decide, put it out, send it out for bid,
Yeah,
and get the numbers back before, if
Yeah, I-
possible, before the start of the season.
I think that's what happened here, because it was originally blank last year, there wasn't a figure in here. But then in my records, with the budget, it actually was 15, I believe. I could check that though.
We'll work on that too. Okay.
While I was looking, just real quick, on the contracting of the mowing, this summer, we were very lenient with people this winter on the new law that we passed with the keeping the sidewalks clean. And now we're 2 weeks after the storm, and half these sidewalks are spent a week after the roads have been cleared, so they can move the snow off at least. There's still a decent amount of sidewalks that have no path, so people are walking on the street. So, it's decision time, we pass the law, do we start finding people? And then with in the same breath, because we're talking about grass cutting and whatnot, is that day one, I wanna be aggressive about not allowing these, particularly
Overgrown.
landlords that are not taking care of their spots, let everybody, but when you see it on a regular, the majority of them are rentals. And it's because the landlords are telling them they'll be responsible, they're not doing it. Bottom line, the owner is gonna get fined. And then that'll help us with our needs for money to take care of these issues. On top of that, keeping this village looking the way it should.
It was 15,000 in this current year's budget. Okay, I identified this as maybe the good candidate for the DPW salary, because there is no salary for this line, so I just want the board to consider that, okay? This line and street maintenance has a pretty big amount. Sidewalks doesn't have a salary either. So I just really need to know from the board where you guys want to slot this, if you want to segregate
Where are
this
you?
number. Park 7110, it's park salary, it's 0. Because again, the scenario right now is the department head for DPW is a collateral duty. and you're going to compensate for it as a collateral duty.
Okay.
All right, so there's a couple otherwise, if, let's say we stuck it in the street maintenance line, it's gonna get lost with all the other wages that are going to the employees in that area. So I recommend that you pick either parks or sidewalks or one of these other areas, because they all are DPW functions, and put the department head salary in there.
All right,
I don't wanna make a separate line,
parks,
Sure. Is that okay?
parks,
Okay.
Yeah, as long as we know.
done.
Okay, so the parks line will get the salary in there.
All right. Rather than, well, the last thing before moving on, rather than just talking about it again, letting it go, I'm going to the next town board meeting. Even though it's a budget, it is a budget workshop, I want to push it back maybe 15 minutes, it has to be heard first. And we will ask for the staining out of the parks fund.
Park line reserve.
I'll talk to Bob beforehand,
Next.
so it's not a,
Surprise!
I don't wanna let's sit there and go, hey, you know, try to make them look bad. I'll talk to them beforehand, but then I'd like him to do it publicly so that, again, this is another good opportunity for the village and town to collaborate.
You mean the next town board meeting?
Yeah,
That's, I think, the 9th?
yeah, it's still a
Not-
budget,
Yeah.
still a budget meeting, right?
No, they're not having any budget.
No,
It's not
ours.
No,
Okay.
ours is this coming Monday.
No? Okay, good, all right then.
So
I'll
there's
just-
no
I'm-
interference.
I should have something to you by Monday.
All right, I'll be talking to Bob prior to that meeting, and then if need be, we'll go to the meeting and formally request it if he wants us to, so the whole board is part of it. And, but we've got to start somewhere. I think the staining, the necessity for it, it's time.
Mary, you reminded me of something too. Charlie, do you believe the fire department's numbers will be available Monday?
I hope so. I've communicated with Steve,
Okay.
the new chief, because he hasn't done this before.
Okay, the reason why I'm saying that is that because we're having a village board meeting on Monday, I'd like to maybe move the police to Wednesday, because with the village board meeting, and police could take a little while, because you've got dispatching, you've got the police department, you've got the overtime issues and so on. Maybe what we'll do is we'll swap police to Wednesday and move fire department to Monday. Because fire department's a lot less, you know, we shouldn't take us that long. Because if we do the police, we won't start till 8:30, depending on how long your board meeting is.
Well, it depends, because I've already told them it's the 5th, whether or not they can change their
Okay,
schedule. to
well, I'm
the
just
5th.
throwing it out there just for scheduling, because otherwise what we'll have to do is we'll start with the police and carry them over to Wednesday. I figured that if we're able to
Right.
do that,
I agree.
we could actually put the police as one whole block on Wednesday and not have any interruption, so, just throw that out there.
If we can, we can. We can, we can.
I'll give it a shot.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Beautification, A 7120.4. We've been assisting the garden club when I've seen it in the past, so I left that. They've been buying pretty much their own stuff. I think the town's been supplying
Townsman, yeah, the
supplying
townsman.
it. We've been supplying removal for them or stuff like that.
We provided a lot of manpower this past
Yeah.
year. And I think that's where we need to stay for now. We
Yeah.
don't have the extra funds to be putting out there. I would love to give Garden Club and Vision a ton of money, but these are groups that have the ability to go out and get other funds. What they don't have the ability to do is have, like when those concrete planters came in, you know, what it cost them an arm and a leg to have a crew come in and help
Right.
replace them. The village crew did that. That's a huge help, and that's what we're gonna continue to do, with the decorations. I think we actually picked up some decorations this year,
Yeah.
because they were short. But, that's something that I want to not only continue, but be a bigger part of, and that's when they do the, decorating for the holidays. Because I think that we need to increase that. I would like to see it at least from my town market straight to the gate. And have, so that when people are coming through, and it's not, yes, I want it for the visitors, I want it for our residents. So when they go downtown, they have that holiday feeling. But I agree, I don't think we need to put any more money in this area, because technically, we spend a decent amount of money in
Just labor
assistance.
alone.
Labor. Any questions on that? Okay, go ahead.
Next one would be storm sewer, A 8140.2. There's no equipment, we didn't budget for nothing. Which takes us to A 8140.4 contractual. I left the 4,000 in there for jetpack service, which is the same service the sewer plant uses. That's for all our storm drains throughout the village.
Why isn't this understood sewer?
We have catch basins, they're sanitary, so we're storm sewer.
Okay.
Catch basins and grading frames, I left that the same after seeing how the winter was. We got a few more to replace. Cut back on storm sewer pipe to 1,500. Did an assessment down there, in pretty good shape. Cement I left the same, because due to, we have some patches to do this spring. Blocks and bricks, I left that the same. And I cut back on precast manholes. I don't see, we have a lot of stuff we've been doing in-house with block and everything, and the guys are very capable of modifying and making stuff. We do have a few left over, so I cut that back a little bit to bring it to 9,000 instead of 12. So it'll give us a $3,000 decrease.
Also, just so everybody knows, for whatever reason, the 02 line dropped out, so I'm gonna have to plug that back in, because it didn't show up on mine, it's listed as equipment, and that's incorrect. The equipment, is 0, the contractual is 10,500. That's what I got off of your numbers, Kevin, does that
Okay.
match up with what you have? I dropped 500 and 1,000 off of 12,000.
Should be, yes, I'm sorry.
Jetback is good, catch basin's
Yep.
good, cement is good, and bricks are good, right?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
that was my mistake there.
Sorry. Now, the thing about the storm sewers, is that equipment gonna be the same equipment that, the sewer department's going to do, the camera? Is that the same,
No, that would be, that would be the same equipment.
But yeah, so
Yeah.
the 041, you could
Mhm.
use that equipment for mapping?
Doesn't mapping come out? I thought,
It does, I'm
Yeah.
just, it's a
Yeah.
0, but what I was wondering is, remember Johnny Jones had brought up the camera? Can the camera be used to accomplish this if you need it?
That would be for the tracing and stuff, or to find where the sewer line is.
Okay.
What is the mapping? Why would?
Mapping would be,
The mapping was for, when they were doing the engineer had to go and map where all the manholes are, where all the outlets are. It was all part of the MS4 project, and it was over a 2-year period. This was 1 year, and it was in the budget before that. So I believe that project was completed.
So now we're mapped.
So
yes, we have a.
they did that
map
project.
Locations of it.
Okay.
I would say probably in the future though, this might be a good candidate for the engineering line, because it is lost a little bit, you know? If it was solely an engineering function, Gina?
They performed this function that needed to be done, the mapping of all, where all the outlays are. It was an MS4 requirement, and the
Okay.
engineer took the lead.
Okay.
All right, well, he's saying it's not really capable in our realm, so let's not look to the future, let's put it there. It's a 0 this year, so.
as long as it's a
let's move it.
0.
Yeah, let's move it to the engineering
Yeah.
area.
There's nothing really.
In the future, if you need
Yep.
it.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
We'd have it there. Okay, perfect. The next one would be garbage. A 8160.4, I left that the same.
20,000?
Yeah.
And that goes to the town?
No.
No,
No.
isn't that
That's
yard waste?
Yard waste and everything.
Oh, this is going out to 293.
Is that what you spent?
Yeah. If we can find a better location, I'll see what I can scope out this year to see if we can.
What did
Yes.
we used to do with it? Okay, never mind.
I
That's,
will
we need
check.
to revisit that.
Yeah.
You're gonna hang out for a bit.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
I will check what our usage is this year, because 2 years ago it was 12,000. So if it's also low, maybe we're budgeting a little too much for it. Okay.
Do you have the numbers? Did we spend 20?
I do have to print everything out down there that was
Okay.
there. I just came and do it to the tail end of it.
No problem.
But we can, I'll make some,
This is something we have to look at, because there's 2 or 3 things within this that we need to.
yeah.
That's just picking up like yard waste and stuff?
We're talking about it later.
We can say that for it.
Boy.
Moving on, street cleaning.
Street cleaning, we didn't budget for no equipment. Contractual will be replacement parts and maintenance to the sweeper itself. And that stayed the same, the sweeper's getting older.
Now, we had increased it last year, so we're going to stick with
Yeah.
5,000 for repairs and parts?
We just had some done over the winter, a little bit, so we're, as soon as the weather starts, we're gonna be out, we're gonna be on the streets going like it should.
My question is, how many brooms are we buying? 'Cause
No,
2,000
that's sweeper brooms,
Oh, okay.
not hand brooms,
Right.
no.
Is that what you,
Not Mary
you
Poppins.
replace it a couple times, or?
Yeah, because of the constant wear and tear of
How
it.
many times a summer do you think you go through a set of rooms?
I would ask Walter to have to look on the maintenance.
More than a
one.
couple, you think?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
because there's one big one and a small one. The small one takes a beating the most,
Right.
then you got the bigger one.
One of the other items that seem to be
With the
wear
On the
the
sweeper.
sweeper, yeah.
The usual maintenance, the filters, the screens, the tank getting welded again, little cracks in there.
How old's that truck?
I'm not sure, I'd have to look it up.
I mean,
just-
I remember
Could you,
seeing it all
could you look it
the
up first, but here's the other question I have. It's my understanding that there was more maintenance, preventative maintenance done in the past, not as much now, and that's one of the reasons why it continues to break down. That's something that, as the DPW and water, that's something that I wanna see more of, particularly now that we've replaced so much at sewer and the water plant, and newer things that we're gonna be getting for the DPW. We need to work harder on the preventive maintenance, rather than replacement parts. The, you know, just oiling the gears or whatever, greasing the gears, all that, so that gives us that extra 2 weeks. The only other thing with the street sweeper, and just put this in the back of your mind, when I see it, too often, we've gotta come up with a better plan for the street sweeper. When I see us sweeping in the middle of the road on half these roads, because there's 2 or 3 cars there, the middle of the road doesn't need sweep.
No.
You need
The curb
on the
line.
sidewalks. So whether we have to come up with a method, just like
time.
for snow, yeah.
Something
This,
to do
these
with the
days,
police,
you can't park on this
We can-
side.
yeah.
And this way it actually gets done, because what we're doing is we're paying to sweep half the time the middle of the roads,
Right.
and this thing's breaking down, we're paying more money, plus we're paying a guy to do it, and we're not getting the
We'll have
product.
to get a plan together.
But we
If
need a
You're gonna
plan.
sweep on the
I'll
north
outside.
end, those streets, you know, church.
You and the
4
police
4 yeah.
Yes.
work together so that we can clear areas.
I just found a copy of the specs on the pavilion. It was 7,500 for labor and material with a 5 to 7 year warranty on the material, and then an extra 1,000 for painting the metal plates, so it was 8,500.
You would find it, Charlie.
What
I
date?
remember
I dig that.
gotcha, yeah.
What was the
I-
date on
If
that?
anyone's gonna find it, I'd say,
It was
geez,
last
Charlie.
year.
Does it have-
It was 1 year.
Yeah, that
Okay,
85?
Can you make me a copy of that?
I'll give you this, but I don't have the name of the person who bid, but it would have to be rebid anyway.
All right.
But it gives you an
That
idea.
at least gives us our budget amount, and then we can go from there.
So you don't have to shock
Listed
the
on
town by
the
saying
quote?
15,000.
32,000.
Does it have that type of material that they're using?
The Silkins, which is the Silkins.
Is it a cedar? I thought that was a cedar building.
Cedar? For some reason, I've heard that.
Yeah.
I will.
Any
I
other
will-
questions on the street sweeper?
Please. So I got a list of things we'll work for you. I do have a good rapport with the police department and getting traffic and everything. We'll adopt a policy by spring, so we can get every street maintained and everything this year. Just to inform the board, I opened Tobin's Lane up. It's partially open, it'll be open up to traffic tomorrow.
Really?
Yeah. So, we just gotta move some snow down there. It's a walkway right now, but that's open, and tomorrow we'll have it completely. Maybe a little bit more work to do, so.
Do me a favor, I know there was some tension. Just throw a letter to, not to the people, but to Sue, and saying, you know, appreciate you working with us.
Yes,
I
I'll
know
stop
it
and
was-
see her personally.
It's tough for both ways. She wants 8 more weeks to get it done right, and we needed it done 3 weeks ago. So, but to keep everything,
I'll stop and visit her
All right,
personally, and I had explained to her, my concern is,
right,
it's a public safety.
we needed
issue.
it open 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, but
But that wasn't her fault, that was
No.
unfortunately the way.
that was a
it
different,
fell.
I worked. I
that was
saw-
a
I
different
spoke to her
department
too.
involved in
A
that.
couple days ago, I was talking to her.
Okay, I'll make sure, I gotta see her tomorrow, and tell her we appreciate her and time and patience with us, but she understood where we were coming from.
I'd actually like, if you have, if you're, unless you're on the move, Gina, what are you thinking, 10, 20 minutes, 30 minutes? For you, we're doing the building next? After DPW?
Administration?
Administration?
Yeah.
Can you stick around for exec or no?
Yeah.
All right, stick around for a couple minutes.
One question, Kevin, 5010.4, did we cover that contractual, $2,300?
50.4,
Yeah,
yeah, that was the copier, I reduced that by 100, and the school and training material, I reduced that down to 200 off that.
okay, so 2,300 is a good
Yes.
number for that?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Thank you, everybody, I appreciate your time on that.
Yep, thank you.
Feel free to any questions or concerns, please stop, if you have a chance to stop down the garage, and, you know, the more we can educate you through each department, so you get a better understanding how things work, the equipment, you know, we're always available, and if you ever wanna take a ride with one of the trucks, or, you know, please make time, 15 minutes would mean a lot, so you can understand if you have a question about equipment, or jobs that are coming up, it really makes a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
You trying to turn yours off for administration? Is that what you're doing? Oh, that's it? Okay.
Okay, let's start with administration. I spoke with Gina, we reviewed it, and Gina asked me if I could cover for the department, so I gladly will do that.
Do we have worksheets on this?
Well,
It's on the
what
main sheet.
I have is, I have this sheet, and then whatever I was able to plug in, I plugged in, so I'll discuss it with you. And then if there's any further questions, if you want me to do an expense register or something like that, I can provide you with that, okay? Okay, we'll start off with the budget. Budget's $100, 1340.04. That's gonna remain $100. Again, that's largely for legal notices and any ancillary costs for in-budget production. Purchasing, if you look on your sheets, there's that's a 2% increase in the salary, 15,158.83. We have one part-time employee that occupies that position, Sue. And I had put in 500 for the 04. That is only, you know, that's something that there should be some type of contractual in that department. Last year was 0, the year before that it was 750. So I put 500 to prevent us from having to do budget adjustments, because we have no money in there to support it. If the board wants to have any other number, you know, I can put that in there, but I think that there needs to be some type of funding in there. 1920.04. And I'm gonna skip a little bit because I wanna get back, part of administration is gonna be engineering, the attorney, treasurer, a bunch of other stuff, so. So we're at 1920.04, that's municipal dues. The total on that for NICOM and Association of Towns is $2,400, so that number's gonna be adjusted plus you. That number's gonna be put down to 2,400. Okay, elections, that is 1450.04. No salary there, it's gonna remain 1,800. Right now it says 2,000, it's gonna push back to 1,800, it can stay flat. Next, we have, under buildings, we used to have Ricky do the cleaning, now we have Eva's Cleaning Service. It's $600. Gina, can you remind me of what the costs are, for what period?
Every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks, so it's $1,200 a month. And so we're looking at about 14,000 and change. Ricky was at 14,000, so it's, what we're going to do is we're gonna move from the salary line to the building's contractual, where the 42,000 is listed, and we're gonna aggregate that to 56 to hit that line.
And is that, how long is that contract with?
It was just 1 year.
So it goes out to bid again.
It's renewable if the board wants to renew it, or if the board wants somebody else that can
I
get somebody
definitely
else.
wanna rebid it, just this, I mean, if Ricky was going 14 and we're paying 46, at the very least for Eva, say, hey, by the way, 39 would be great.
Yeah.
She did come down to
I know,
the,
I know. I'm obnoxious. I think we all agree on that. I was gonna, you're not gonna agree, I know. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see, what's next? Registrar. This is important to understand, and Gina and I were talking about this on Monday? Monday.
The registrar?
Registrar is 4020.01, okay, that's going to be $500, but this is something that probably most boards don't know, and it was actually something that I learned too. The registrar is a function that the proceeds from registrar activity go to the registrars. It's not really something that's part of the village's financing. The money gets received and it's a direct payment to the registrars for that function. So when you, whatever number you see there, it really is not gonna have any huge bearing one way or another. Yeah, it's a pass-through, but it has to be listed, okay? So if the registrar receives $260 for the year, that's all that's gonna be dealt with there. It's not, there won't be any surplus if they receive more,
Right.
there won't be any deduction if there's less. It's just basically that's the function that the registrar does, okay? All right, okay, now a couple other incidental things here. Fire department, we're gonna do, we talked about the truck room painting and everything, we're gonna do an operations for the truck room. That's 3410, it's gonna be .0411. It's gonna be basically for all those supplies for that. I'm gonna need the fire department to give us some type of estimate on that.
Well, we did a big hit this past year. Hopefully, we
Well,
won't have
Can you
that.
get some assurances from the
Yeah.
chief that there's not gonna be a demand note saying
Right.
6 months into it, we need $2,000 for X? Maybe the fire department can make the decision as to whether this
Isn't
year.
that up to us what we do, as long as it's livable?
It is,
It's our room.
it is, okay, but under contract,
No, it's
have a
light
lease.
bulbs
Right.
and paint.
you need to have that
Yeah.
discussion.
And
It's light bulbs and paint, you know, again, as you said, we took a huge thing this year. It's light bulbs and paint, if the light's out, I wanna change it. If the paint is chipping,
oh, it was.
I know that, but I know that. And then we were overdue on that, but what I'm saying is,
The
I don't wanna get into
ceiling- The ceiling has.
every other year, we're putting a new paint coat on because someone wanted a different color.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I'm saying. It is our room. And, you know, it's not like, I'm not really thrilled with blue. Can you make it a little orange?
No,
You know, look, no, you understand what I'm saying? We're not,
I don't anticipate anything
right.
like that.
I don't believe, and depending on the contract, that, you know, it can arbitrarily be like, you need to paint the room again. We'll go in there and go, "Nah, I don't think we do. Looks great, you know? That's how I read it, and I might be wrong.
What, couldn't that be just negotiated truck room lease fee? Rather than,
Look, the board, and it was signed by the previous mayor, So it's essentially a liability
Yeah,
unless you renegotiate it.
Well, can we, when we do the, sit down for the new lease, we can,
That's on the table, absolutely.
yeah.
When is the lease up?
It's once a year, or?
It's 2 years.
Is it 2
Every 2
years?
years?
Okay.
It's a
Probably-
3-year lease, we're in the first year, so there's
Okay.
2 more.
Okay. And again, in no way do I want to deny the fire department, I just,
Well,
you
the
get.
other thing, I think the fire department probably would have, done the labor,
Right,
but because of the festivities and such, it was pushed through.
and you had mentioned that, yeah, because we had the parade and everything else. It needed to be done quickly and whatnot, but that's actually more of what I'm looking for as well. I don't mind giving the paint,
yeah.
you know, normally that's what you do, you have a paint party with them. If not, then we go to the Bill's Well again and get the community service people down there.
Well, from what I can see, the only thing left to do in there is the ceiling. And that's gonna be a pain in the neck moving the trucks out there.
Well, I guess the key thing is when's the ceiling gonna be done? Is it this year, next year, half this year, half that? So,
And we can talk to the fire department.
yeah, that'd be great. Okay, clerk, we have 1410.011, the TV man. That's $1,500, it's gonna remain the same. TV man, AKA
Kevin?
Kevin.
Oh, okay. Wasn't sure you'd know what that, I was like, yeah.
TV man, there it is.
Not Rico man, TV man.
It's
Uh,
first page.
The clerk equipment will remain at $6,000. That is potentially fungible down to $4,000. I'll explain that when we get to treasurer. So there's, we can discuss that. Gina, you can chime in on that also, please. Clerk contingent or contractual is $23,000. It's down $500. And again, clerk contractual covers pretty much everything from the Pitney Bowes machine to KBS dues, to KBS support, to Times Herald Record, advertising, administrative support supplies for administration. Trying to think of what
Some
other
of
big tickets
yeah,
are.
the big ticket, there's the labor with the computer,
Oh, the
labor,
computer firm.
yeah, that we replenish for computer support on the labor of anything. The general code, every year when we do all the local laws and they have to update the E-code system and the books. That might at some point come down some, since the code is now online. Not many people have the use of the hardcover book, but you do have to keep the few copies in the vault up to date for historical purposes and legal there. Those are
Yeah,
like the big
I would ask that we
items.
do the least amount for historical purposes and legal. I
Right,
think
so
you're
we
doing
could
a
probably
great job
cut
at
that number
keeping that
down a
low.
little
Yeah.
bit. It's over 12, it depends also on how many
Changes.
changes that we need. The website support is in my budget, paper to do the billings is in my, the envelopes that are needed, copy paper, all that for billing. The folding machine, maintenance agreement, that's under my budget, and we definitely need that agreement because that man has to come every time we do it, and we wanna make sure he comes when we need the bills
The
done.
what machine?
The folding machine for the bills,
For the water and sewer.
for the water and sewer bills and tax
Oh,
bills.
okay.
So, but we are looking at replacement of that at a more economical number. But for sure, we do wanna make sure we pay that agreement for upcoming bills. We don't wanna be without an agreement, cause then he won't come when we need it. And just a few membership items that are in there. But those are the bigger items. And the phone lease gets split between my department and the police department. The Avaya system, which is the phone intercom,
Right.
all that system. So those are the big, and a postage, most of the heavy postage, it gets actually split to water and sewer because it's for the billings, and those are bulk mailings. And that pretty much covers my contractual.
Okay, and then, okay, so now we'll look at treasurer, and what I was speaking about with the computer is this year, the treasurer's computer was upgraded because it was the oldest computer that was in the system, and there was concern it was gonna crash. That's where this laptop came from. The amount spent was a little bit under $2,000, but what I did was I put in the treasurer's budget $2,000 to pay for a computer in the administration, because the treasurer was not charged this year for the hardware. Okay, so to fix that, next year, we will buy a computer for the office area one, or we'll buy we'll get XP is now not being supported anymore, that's a software. And we'll have to upgrade our software, so that money will be used to replenish the money that was spent out of the, I believe, Gina, was out of the.
Well, there was only one budget between clerk and treasurer
Between clerk
for
and treasurer,
equipment.
that's right. So, so that's all, that $2,000 that's listed in the, under treasurer is going to be a refund back to the administration in a purchase of either software or a computer. Because I was able to get the computer even though there was nothing on the equipment line for treasurer, so it came out of the contractual.
But we did not spend 2,000 for that computer.
No, there was,
No.
no, you spent the, I don't, I'd have to pull the bills, but I think this was somewhere around,
I think it was around 700,
Yeah, that's what
1,700.
it should
and then the
be.
Yeah, but he had a
software,
monitor too.
and then,
You had the additional monitor as
the
well.
additional monitor, there's a bunch of stuff. So, I budgeted that, as a replenishment. What I did though is I also took back the contractual down from 23.5 to 20,000. I knocked off, I looked at the expense register and everything that was spent, and I believe that I can still safely drop that a little bit. Now, traditionally, the clerk's contractual and the treasurer's contractual have been kind of used as backups for each other. If there's overage on one, then we go to the other. Gina and I talked about that. She felt that it worked reasonably well in the previous time. So I said, you know what, I can work with that. But I did want to pull down the budget a little bit, because again, I looked at it and I looked at previous years and I saw that there was a couple $1,000s at least left over. And I think we have room to be able to trim that a little bit. So I knocked the contractual down to 20. I can give you a couple snapshots of what the treasurer spends money on. $4,000 was spent for KVS equipment on support. Obviously, the KVS, the biggest user of KVS is the financial system. We have another $700 to KVS for probably some software upgrades. It doesn't itemize to me what's here. Anything we do with the Times Herald Record as bond notices or any of that kind of stuff, that comes out of here. We did have some items that, what's that, Margaret Lewis? Let's see.
That was training,
Training.
reimbursed mileage.
Okay, so Margaret was listed out of the treasurer's fund for training and mileage. Rico, WB Mason, Shred It, FLC Equipment and Supplies, that's the computer vendor, Neopost. Again, a lot of this is related to stuff that we need to do for reach out to our village residents as far as if there's any announcements or if there's anything to do with sewer and water. US Postal Service has some items here. So when it all adds up, it adds up to last year, $14,000 came out of the treasurer's contractual. So I brought it down a little bit and still left a little bit of cushion there to act as backup for the clerk, and also just in case the treasurer has anything that comes up. Any questions so far? Okay, in the audits were moved up $1,000 because we have to pay Munistat for their preparation of our serial bond and announcement, and basically what it is it's almost like a mini audit of our serial bond that was initiated in 2012. It's required to go to the investors of the bond. Part of the serial bond requirements are that a filing gets made on behalf of the village to state to the bondholders that the condition of the village hasn't materially changed, that the,
Still stay the same rating?
yeah,
Basically.
that the village is gonna pay, because the bondholders want that, and it's a SEC filing. So that costs us $1,400. I looked at the audit number and how much we're paying, and out of that $1,400, I popped it up 1,000 to make sure that we had enough to pay off any of the costs. Remember, we also have GASB 45 requirements, we have the annual audit requirements, we have any other ancillary support there. So that's remained largely same, except for the 1,000 increase because of the added cost now of the SEC filing.
That's every year on that
Yeah.
specific issue?
Yeah. That's
So every bond that we have,
No, it's a new, according to NOAA, it's a new thing that now is being required for these large consolidated bonds, when you consolidate your bands and so on. And for these type of issues, that filing is required annually. It's actually a stipulation in the bond language. Okay, so we didn't pay it last year, because the year that the bond's incepted, you don't pay it. Which is why we didn't budget for it, because it wasn't, well, I guess if language was read, it could have been anticipated. But this year we had to take out of I'm thinking I did pay that out of the treasurer line this year to pay for it, even though it should come out of the audits line. Okay? Because the audits line was short 1,000. Actually, it has like 400 in it, so it wasn't enough to pay, 400 or 500. Okay, so basically, when you look at the treasurer's final number, it's a little bit under flat by the $100 from last year. Okay, so now we go to attorney. Okay, attorney, I plugged in $40,000 for the attorney. That's the same as last year. I do recommend the board consider what I talked about maybe having more ownership of the attorney, maybe attending one village board a month and working out an agreement where, you know, he gets kind of like you did with the prosecutor. There's a monthly guaranteed amount for hours, and then anything over that is, you know, cost of doing business with the village. So right now I got 40, but I really would like the village board to give me direction by next Wednesday as to what we're going to do with that. If we have to plus it up, bring it down, maybe Ben Gailey could be contacted, and just or if you know, if it's not Ben Gailey and you guys want to consider do an RFP or whatever, let's just factor in what we want to do with that. Prosecutors moved up to 8,500 as per the agreement the board agreed to about a month ago. So your net there is 48,500, which is $1,500 over last year. Engineer was put in at $25,000. The big reason that I moved this up is that, number one, there's a lot of engineering stuff that's getting lost in other functions, as we saw earlier. I recommend that the board try to segregate all engineering costs into an engineering line, so you guys get your true costs of what the engineer costs. Your capital fund, a lot of your capital fund projects had a lot of engineering work. None of that's reflected in this number, okay? So you also have this hazard mitigation plan that needs to be done.
is that in this line?
I've worked it in this line, but again, I added some things in here because I think that you're gonna have these expenses, but I think that there probably needs to be more discussion by the board as to what you think the right number is for that. It could be north of this, I was a little bit liberal as far as this number. My instincts were to put this number around 35,000. And largely because there's a lot of leakage. As we saw earlier, you had engineering for the mapping. That's really should go under your engineer line, so you know that
Right,
that's
so
an
it's not buried
expense.
someplace else.
Yeah, because you don't see it. So, right now I've got it at 25, I'll ask for input from the board next Wednesday. Okay. Unallocated insurance, the insurance agent is supposed to meet next week. We're just trying to settle on the time, and we're gonna get an update on our insurance costs. The expectation is our insurance costs are going up. We had obviously a big exposure with the FEMA situation where it was turned then into insurance and then we had to pay out for insurance. Now, that stuff is going to hit some of those funds, maybe not necessarily the A fund, might hit the sewer fund, but collectively, the unallocated insurance is it's gonna rise. So I increased that preliminarily. That number's probably subject to change once we get to harder numbers. Right now, it's listed at 130. Judgment and claims, I put $5,000 in there. We've had several certiorieries come through this year, we didn't have any money budgeted for them, so it came out of contingency. So that needs to be populated, and I think 5,000 is a fair number to at least protect us if we do get a negative liability that comes up. MTA tax, I put it at 7,500. What I'm basically going to do is take last year's, make sure our payroll is pretty close to what it was last year, and if it is, this number is going to pretty much remain in the area of what it is. I upped contingency for the A fund up to $50,000 from 25. Part of that is the understanding that when we nail down the salaries, that the salaries are probably going to be largely your base salaries and then whatever agreed to overtime is required. And that's a little bit of a moving target right now because I don't know what the board's majority opinion is as to how we're going to handle the overtime. John Jones turned in an overtime sheet, and that sheet looked like that's like required overtime. I don't know if we're going to say, no, we're not doing that, part-time or part-timers or other employees have to do that, or, again, I need guidance from the board as to how you guys want to handle the overtime problem. If I go with what the sheet John Jones turned in, and it's good, he did what he needed to do, he calculated the hours and so on, then I'm gonna even have to up this contingency to 75,000. Okay, or I'm gonna have to build it into the salary, okay, salary line. So we'll discuss that in executive session so that, because we're gonna deal with specific departments, potentially specific employees, but I will need guidance on that, okay? Central Communications, we'll get all that from the police department. That also, I spoke with the mayor about this. It's an executive session discussion again because there'll be a specific contractual thing. But there is some ideas there to see how we can kind of make sure that salary doesn't get out of hand as far as overtime. Salaries are set, it's the overtime, that's the question. Traffic control, Kenny did put something in there, we'll talk about that going forward. Fire department's coming up, he's good, it's done. Just trying to see if there's anything else I've missed. Youth programs, we need to discuss what we want to do with that number. Remember, we're competing with the senior citizens as far as what kind of money is going to be put aside for that.
I thought we discussed.
Yeah, I thought we agreed
taking that
upon
out,
it, yeah.
Okay,
Zeroing it out.
okay.
In favor
Oh, I
of
didn't, I,
seniors.
We discussed it,
discussed
and
it,
agreed.
right.
Yeah,
Oh,
we'll
okay.
do that today.
Okay.
okay. All right, historian, I don't have really any input on historian. We leave it flat. Last year the historian, or 2 years ago, the historian's contractual was pretty much $1,000. I'm assuming that the board's probably gonna,
15,
huh?
it's only 1,000.
Yeah,
Contractual.
contractual.
Salaries.
Yeah, salaries,
Okay.
yeah. Celebrations, nothing. Senior citizens, I'm changing this, from Recreation Highlanders to Senior Citizen Center. Okay? The contractual here, I put $50,000 in. I did make a recommendation to the mayor about the potential of maybe offering out there to the public that the village will set aside funds if they get donations and basically match any donations that come in. So if a public citizen wants to donate to the senior center, the village would set aside funds to match up. So if a citizen says, I'll give $5,000 to help that senior center, then in the budget, $5,000 could be taken out of this number, and then you got $10,000 for work on the senior. So again, I'll need guidance on whether or not, that number, do we want 50, do we want 25? Again, this is all preliminary. Once I break these down, we'll have a better idea whether or not we
When it
even.
comes, whatever the budget is at that point.
Exactly. But there are considerations with the senior center related to when the clock starts. And the clock
Right.
doesn't start until it's, people can start using it. So if it's 50,000 and we get 50,000 in contributions, it's 100,000. I think 100, Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, but 100,000 should be able to open those doors,
You get in
right?
there and heat the place, and insured, and all the things that are necessary for us to do, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so that's just a proposal, and I'll wait for the board as to how you guys see that. Okay, as I mentioned, the benefits, state retirement, LoSAP, all that stuff will be populated by next Wednesday. And after the police are done, I should, by the end of the week, be able to have a document that's gonna give you a pretty good feel for where our numbers are. And then we'll have the following week to get ourselves into a mode where we're in the 2% range, okay? And again, that's just for our tentative budget. The real McCoy is when we get to the adoption of the budget, that has to be under 2% for us to fall under the guidelines, okay? Bond debt, I reviewed our bond debt, I've already populated our bond debt. The net of that is that in the A fund, the bond debt goes up approximately $50,000, but I'm still looking at a couple numbers on one of the bonds because there's a little bit of a moving target. There's a lot of documents and some stuff have superseded other stuff. So I'm going to talk to Noah Nadelson and have him give me what is the actual actuarial schedule, repayment debt schedule for that. Because I have two schedules and I need to determine which one's accurate. That's the A fund. When I go into the F fund, the bond schedule in the F fund, again, I also did populate, and everything there looked pretty much okay. The big pickup that you get out of the F fund is the water meters. Water meter bond had been paid off this year. The last 100,000 went this year, but we picked up the $400,000 amended bond issuance for the water tanks. Okay, so our net is going to be about the same when we finish those numbers up. And then I go to the sewer fund, and again with sewer, the bond situation there is, let me just see if there's anything that jumps out at me. No, I think that's that. The net bond debt is going to go up because the way some of these tables have been set up, last year there was a very low bond payment and this year it balloons. There are two cases I mentioned that happened. So I expect our bond required payments are going to probably go up $100,000 to $200,000. Okay. I also put in on all of these one reserve fund per fund to an actual reserve fund that we will set aside money for and then put into the proverbial lockbox. Okay, so that's largely the administration items. Any questions?
Yeah, with the building, we had talked about Gina and I had talked about the fact that we gotta look at putting money aside to start redoing the outside again, this building. So that needs to be considered, and needs to be considered, at least considered this year. If not, putting a nice chunk aside next year, so that within 2 to 3 years, because the needs are there.
There's a building reserve fund.
So that's the only thing in this area that I need.
Yeah,
I
that
want
would
to
be,
make sure that we,
that would be an A fund item. I'm just gonna put it down.
there's 2 or 3 things that, you know, as you mentioned, the exact items, so I don't have any questions.
Yeah.
Any other questions? All right, is that it? Ed?
That's it for today. We covered everything that we were supposed to do.
I'm going to executive session.
Second by Anthony, all's in favor? Excellent, thank you.
Did we
Ted, we'll
make
get rid of
it
you first.
tonight?
Yeah, we did, 5 minutes early.